because we're co-stars, we're compadres, we're companions, and we're a couple.
Yeah, there's only one thing we're not.
What?
Married.
For over 4 decades, Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell have been seen as the ultimate symbol of enduring love in the turbulent world of Hollywood. No wedding, no rings yet, they've held hands through every storm, convincing the world that love doesn't need a ceremony to last forever. But at 79, during what seemed like an ordinary conversation, Goldie Hawn suddenly revealed a truth she had kept hidden for 40 years. I never wanted to marry Kurt because I was afraid that if we did, we'd lose each other. A simple, almost weightless confession, yet it shook Hollywood to its core. After decades of being celebrated as the embodiment of eternal love, Goldie Hawn herself drew the first crack in her own legend. And people began to wonder, was the happiness the world had long admired ever truly peaceful? What secrets did she finally decide to reveal? Let's find out. Before becoming a Hollywood icon, she was once the little girl standing under a leaky roof, learning to smile so she wouldn't cry. Goldie Hawn was born in 1945 in the suburban town of Tacoma Park, Washington, D.C., in a small run-down house tucked between rows of working-class homes. Whenever it rained, droplets would fall through the ceiling, blending with the sound of her father's old piano. He was a failed musician, and her mother's weary sighs, a dance teacher struggling to feed the family. In that cramped room, Goldie would dance to the offbeat tunes, her dress twirling through puddles of rainwater. It was there she learned to smile through sadness, a fragile armor she would wear for the rest of her life. Amid the teasing and mockery at school, she found the one place she truly belonged, the stage. In the early 1950s, Goldie was a small, clumsy girl with messy, straw blonde hair, often laughed at by her classmates. Yet, whenever music filled her mother's dance studio, something inside her transformed. Her body moved with grace, and her eyes lit up. Music was the only space where she felt seen, where she could simply be. Every dance step was an escape from the loneliness of her leaking home and the cruel jokes that followed her. The stage lights gave her a sense of love, but also taught her an early truth: light never stays. In 1955, at just 10 years old, Goldie performed for the first time in the Nutcracker at a small community theater. The applause was thunderous. The bright lights bathed her small face in glory. But when the curtains closed and the hall emptied, no one was waiting backstage. Her father was working late. Her mother was still teaching only the wind, and her mud-stained white dress remained. In that silent moment, she understood the stage lets people see you, but it never makes them stay. The more applause she received, the more she feared the silence after the lights dimmed. In her teenage years, Goldie worked as a dancer in small theater troupes around D.C. before moving to New York in 1964. She rented a damp attic room in Manhattan, danced by day, taught by night, and counted every dollar under the cold green glow of a neon sign. Each night, wiping off her stage makeup, she would stare at her pale, exhausted reflection and wonder, if I stop smiling, will anyone still want to stay? Her smile became her survival mask, a performance she could never end. Born in scarcity and raised in the spotlight, Goldie learned to live between applause and the fear of being forgotten. That quiet sense of loss followed her through youth, like her father's unfinished piano tune, like the washed rain dripping through her childhood roof. Everyone who entered her life eventually left like audiences after a show. That fear became instinct. Whenever she loved someone, she already anticipated the moment they'd walk away. And from that fear, the seed of doubt in love, in forever, in marriage itself began to take root in Goldie Hawn's heart. And then, as if fate were playing one of its cruel jokes, the very light Goldie once feared came back to find her brighter than ever. In 1971, at a small musical performance in New York, Goldie met Gus Triconis, a Cuban dancer with gentle smiles and dark eyes that looked like midnight winds. He wasn't famous, but he had a calm presence that made Goldie feel safe, something she had rarely known in her restless life. They practiced together, danced together, shared cheap dinners in their old apartment, and laughed when rain leaked through the ceiling. Gus once told her, "I can't promise you the world, but I'll always be here when you come home." Those words made Goldie believe that finally she had found a place to belong. In 1969, just as Goldie was beginning to gain attention in Hollywood, they quietly married in Hawaii. It was a small ceremony, just a few close friends, a handful of white flowers, and the sound of ocean waves mixing with laughter. In the faded wedding photo, she rests her head on his shoulder, her eyes bright with the faith that love would never leave her again. But life rarely keeps the promises made before the sea. That same year, in the dazzling hall of the Academy Awards in Los Angeles, Goldie Hawn, the golden-haired girl with a smile like sunlight, walked onto the stage to receive her very first Oscar. The world cheered. Cameras flashed. Millions watched her as if witnessing a new star being born. But in what should have been a perfect moment, she noticed one empty seat among the guests. Gus wasn't there. When the night of glory ended, Goldie returned to their small apartment in Laurel Canyon. The hallway light fell across her unopened luggage, her white dress still scented with perfume, and a silence so thick it seemed to have weight. Gus sat in the dark, a half-burned cigarette between his fingers, his eyes distant. Neither spoke. Between them stretched an invisible distance, the space between someone rising to the sky and someone still trapped on the ground. As time went on, Goldie's fame grew, and the silence between them deepened. She spent her days filming while the press called her Hollywood's Queen of Happiness. But at home, the smile disappeared. Dinner went cold. The chair across from her stayed empty. Gus read the paper. Goldie looked at him. They were like two actors lost in the same scene, unsure who was supposed to play the lead anymore. In her diary, she wrote, "When I smile, he doesn't look into my eyes anymore." On Christmas Eve, 1971, Los Angeles was unusually cold. Goldie returned home from a photo shoot to find the house completely dark. On the table lay a single note. "I need to go away for a while." She collapsed onto the floor, her hands trembling as she held the paper, the glow from a small Christmas tree reflecting off her tear-streaked face. Outside, the city glittered, only her apartment remained in darkness. 2 years later, the marriage ended on a quiet afternoon without rain. No shouting, no tears, just the cold sound of a pen scratching across the divorce papers. Gus left, taking a few clothes and old memories. Goldie stayed behind in the empty apartment, with her father's piano, where she would sit for hours, listening to old tunes, as if they could bring the past back to life. Some nights, she opened the window, looked down at the glowing city, and wondered how many people are smiling right now, yet feel as empty as I do. People said she was at her peak, beautiful, famous, rich. But in that house on the Hollywood Hills, there was only one exhausted woman learning to pretend she was happy. Each night she sat before the mirror, removed her makeup, stared at her pale reflection, and whispered, "If I stop smiling, will anyone still want to stay?" The more successful she became, the more Goldie feared happiness. She no longer believed in promises, no longer believed in forever. Because deep down, she had already learned the hardest lesson. Love doesn't die because of betrayal. It dies in silence. And in that silence, a crack began to form. A crack that would forever keep Goldie Hawn from believing that marriage could ever save love. But just when Goldie thought she would never love again, fate appeared once more, carrying a warm smile and a promise that seemed strong enough to mend every wound. In 1975, on a flight from New York to Los Angeles, 30-year-old Goldie Hawn sat quietly by the window, hiding behind oversized sunglasses, avoiding the curious glances of passengers who recognized her. Next to her sat Bill Hudson, the young curly-haired singer of the Hudson Brothers, with a warm voice and a smile that could make anyone forget their sadness. He leaned closer and whispered, "I've never seen anyone smile so beautifully and look so sad at the same time." Goldie laughed the first real laugh she had let out in 2 long years of silence. Within months, they were swept up in each other 2 souls, finding warmth in the middle of winter. Bill made Goldie feel seen, cared for, needed something fame had never given her. She believed this love would be different, that perhaps the universe had finally sent her someone who could heal her. On July 3rd, 1976, they were married in Washington, D.C., in a small church bathed in golden afternoon light. Goldie wore a simple white dress, held Bill's hand, and whispered, "I'm ready to believe again." But sometimes, belief itself is the beginning of a new wound. In the early years, their Beverly Hills home overflowed with laughter, the smell of milk, and the cries of newborns. Their son, Oliver, was born in 1976. A few years later came their daughter, Kate Hudson, with bright eyes and a radiant smile just like her mother's. For the first time, Goldie felt she truly had a family. In an interview, she once said softly, "For the first time in my life, I feel like someone is waiting for me at home." But happiness, like everything else in her life, didn't last long. As Goldie's fame continued to soar, the glare of her success began to blind Bill. She was constantly on set while he faded in the shadow of his famous wife. What started as phone calls full of affection slowly turned into arguments. Bill read every magazine, every photo of her with male co-stars, and asked bitterly, "Did he make you laugh?" Goldie stayed silent because she knew any answer would be wrong. In Bill's eyes, silence was guilt. In Goldie's, it was exhaustion. By the late 1970s, tabloids were buzzing with rumors of Goldie's closeness to Hollywood's most charming leading man, Warren Beatty. Bill exploded in rage. He smashed mirrors and hurled their wedding photo to the floor. Goldie simply stood still, saying nothing. The silence between them this time wasn't temporary. It was the quiet of two strangers living under the same roof. In her diary, she wrote, "I never betrayed him. I just wanted to be myself, but it seems he didn't love that version of me." By 1978-1979, their marriage had officially begun to fall apart. Bill was often away on tour, and Goldie was busy filming Private Benjamin. The distance between them grew until it became irreversible. Each time Bill came home, he no longer saw the gentle wife he'd once loved. And when Goldie looked at him, she saw only a man angry at the world. She once confided to a friend, "I tried my best. But maybe happiness just never chooses to stay with me." In 1980, Bill filed for divorce. Shortly after, he published a memoir titled, "So You Are a Star," accusing Goldie of betrayal, disguised as freedom, claiming she wanted an open marriage and had affairs with co-stars. Hollywood erupted. Reporters swarmed Goldie's home in Pacific Palisades, but she refused to answer a single question. When asked if she wanted to defend herself, she smiled faintly and said, "I once loved him. But sometimes love just isn't enough." Then she closed the door and left the world outside. From then on, Goldie lived alone with her two young children, Oliver and Kate, in a small house on a hill overlooking the ocean. By day, she acted. By night, she read bedtime stories to her kids. When they fell asleep, she would sit silently by the window, watching the distant lights of Los Angeles, the city that still called her the goddess of happiness. But inside that house was just one woman learning how to breathe through the emptiness. Sometimes in the middle of the night, Goldie would wake from a nightmare. She was back on stage, the lights blinding the audience, applauding endlessly. But when she bowed, no one was there anymore. She fell alone in the spotlight. The dream kept returning, each time leaving her more afraid. She knew then the glow of fame was never meant for those who longed for love. 30 years later, the wound still hadn't healed. On Father's Day 2015, Goldie's son, Oliver Hudson, posted a photo with his father on social media, captioned with the icy words, "Happy Abandonment Day." The phrase cut like a knife, reopening old scars. Bill Hudson lashed out publicly, declaring he was cutting ties with his children. Goldie simply held Kate and Oliver close, saying nothing. And she knew the pain of adults always finds its way into the hearts of their children. After 2 heartbreaks, Goldie Hawn stopped believing in promises. In a 1981 interview, when asked if she was ready to love again, she gave a wistful smile and said, "Marriage to me is a beautiful room, but it has no exit." And perhaps at that moment, the world finally understood the woman who made everyone laugh had long forgotten how to smile for herself. After 2 heartbreaks, Goldie Hawn thought her heart had closed forever. But fate, ever fond of mischief, sent her a man who made no promises, yet quietly stayed. In 1980, on the set of Swing Shift in Los Angeles, 38-year-old Goldie met Kurt Russell again, the actor she had first worked with 17 years earlier, in the one and only genuine original Family Band. Back then, Kurt was 16, Goldie 21, 2 young souls passing each other like stars on separate skies. Now they met again, each carrying the cracks of old wounds, each with eyes that had lost the innocent brightness of youth. In that moment, Goldie felt something strange, as if life were offering her a third chance, though not promising it would hurt any less than the first two. Kurt was no longer the shy boy she once knew. After a failed marriage to actress Susan Hubley, he had grown quieter, steadier with the calm of someone who had already fallen and learned to stand again. Goldie, meanwhile, had been through 2 divorces, was raising 2 children, and had a heart too fragile to open. They sat together on set, speaking in short sentences, sharing long silences, and exchanging glances that neither dared to hold too long. As the pale afternoon sun streamed through the studio windows, Goldie smiled a real smile, not for the camera, not for anyone else, just for herself. A few weeks later, Kurt asked Goldie out for a drink at a small Los Angeles bar. They laughed more than they meant to, and when night fell, he suggested they stop by her new house in Pacific Palisades. Without a key, Kurt broke the lock. The alarm went off. Police swarmed the scene, red and blue lights flashing through the dark. Goldie doubled over laughing until tears ran down her cheeks. That laughter born in chaos was the first time in years she felt truly alive again. Later, she said, "We started our love with a small mistake. Maybe that's why it was real." Kurt never made grand declarations. He didn't promise to protect her, nor vow to love her forever. He simply stayed. He drove her children Oliver and Kate to school, watched cartoons with them, taught them to throw a baseball, and quietly cleared the dinner table afterward. No favor, no speeches, just small, ordinary things that once made Goldie cry in the dark, because for the first time, someone was there truly, there without asking for anything in return. "I love him," Goldie once said, "not because he loves me, but because he loves my children." That same year, they moved into a small house overlooking the ocean in Malibu. Mornings, they made coffee together. Evenings, they watched movies after the kids went to bed. No wedding rings, no white dress, no vows, just 2 broken people learning to believe in gentleness again. Yet even in that peace, Goldie kept a quiet distance. Some nights while Kurt slept beside her, she lay awake, eyes tracing the ceiling, listening to the waves outside, afraid that if she ever said the word forever, the magic might disappear. Hollywood buzzed. They called Goldie and Kurt America's strangest couple, living as husband and wife, raising a child together yet never marrying. In interviews, Goldie would laugh, "Marriage isn't my goal." The media called her brave, but her friends knew it wasn't courage. It was fear. 2 heartbreaks had taught her that sometimes the most beautiful promises are the ones that kill love. Someone once asked Kurt, "Aren't you afraid, having nothing to bind her to you?" He simply replied, "No, because real love doesn't need chains." That answer left Goldie silent. She had thought only she understood the fear of losing someone. Yet here was a man who knew how to love freely without leaving. From then on, Goldie and Kurt lived together like 2 souls who had finally found shelter. No ceremony, no rings, no titles, just quiet mornings, simple dinners, and wordless glances. They became living proof that sometimes the strongest kind of love is the one that doesn't need to be proven by vows. And yet, on long nights when the Malibu waves crashed against the shore, Goldie still stayed awake, listening to the wind whisper through the window. She knew that her fear of marriage was still there, buried deep like a wound that never healed. And perhaps it was that very fear that kept their love alive. Because sometimes, to keep someone close, you have to accept you may never be able to call them husband. Many years after they began their life together, Goldie Hawn realized something profound. Sometimes, even the calmest happiness can become a mirror that reflects our deepest fears. On quiet Malibu mornings, sunlight filtered through the curtains, Kurt reading the paper, Goldie making coffee, the children laughing in the garden. Everything so peaceful, it almost felt unreal. Yet whenever Kurt turned away, Goldie would find herself holding her breath, afraid that if he stayed gone too long, the magic might fade. In 1986, they welcomed their son, Wyatt Russell, born in Santa Monica, the only child they shared. As Kurt held the tiny baby in his arms, he whispered, "This is what I want to keep forever." Goldie smiled, but in her glistening eyes, joy and fear seemed to meet. Wyatt grew up under the California sun, in a home without a marriage certificate, but filled with laughter, proof that love could exist without ceremony. Through the 1990s, as Hollywood swirled with loud divorces, Goldie and Kurt still walked red carpets together, still left the parties side by side. The media called them the unconventional couple, a symbol of free love. Goldie would just smile and say, "I'm afraid of weddings. I'm afraid that when everyone celebrates, something will break." The crowd would laugh, but behind her perfect makeup, her hands trembled. In 1990, when everyone believed their wedding was near, Goldie secretly planned a ceremony in Aspen. The dress was delivered, the invitations printed. But just a week before the big day, she disappeared. Kurt searched from Los Angeles to Colorado until he found her sitting in a small wooden cabin in the snow firelight flickering across her empty expression. She said softly, "If I marry you, I'll lose what's keeping us together." Kurt said nothing. He placed a hand on her shoulder, and together they returned to Malibu as if the wedding had never existed. 2 decades later, in 2000, on the Oprah Winfrey Show, Goldie told millions of viewers, "I want to wake up every morning and still have the right to choose to stay." The audience erupted in applause, calling it a declaration of modern womanhood. But few knew the truth, that her words were born from fear. The fear that once happiness was bound by commitment, it would no longer be happiness. In 2017, at the Hollywood Walk of Fame, surrounded by flashing cameras, Kurt and Goldie were honored. Together. When the microphone reached him, Kurt looked at her and said, voice trembling, "I owe you a wonderful life." The crowd laughed and cheered, but Goldie turned to him, her eyes shining, holding everything she had never said aloud. By 2023, after 2 burglaries at their Malibu home, Goldie spent sleepless nights, not afraid of losing possessions, but of losing her sense of safety. Finally, they left the city for Palm Desert, where golden sand met quiet sunsets. There in the stillness, Goldie realized silence no longer frightened her. It was just a little lonely. Then in February 2025, during an interview with Vanity Fair, 79-year-old Goldie Hawn finally spoke the truth she had kept for 40 years. "I didn't marry him because I was afraid of losing him. People think not marrying means freedom, but for me, It's a fear that never goes away. Hollywood fell silent. The woman who had made the world believe in eternal love had confessed that all along she had been living with the fear of losing it. When reporters reached Kurt Russell, he simply smiled. We still wake up and choose to stay. Every day. A short sentence, but the simplest, truest promise of a long life together. Perhaps it was because they needed no rings, no papers, no witnesses that their love endured 40 years and still burning softly. But time moves quietly, and one day, the woman who once made the world believe that happiness needs no ceremony chose to break her silence. At the age of 79, she finally admitted the truth about her relationship with Kurt Russell. At the March 2025 Academy Awards at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles, Goldie and Kurt walked on stage together. The golden light fell on their silver hair and familiar faces. They still glowed, though in Goldie's eyes was a gentler, wearier light. She held Kurt's hand, tightly trembling but steady, as if preparing to say something she'd carried for half a lifetime. Sorry, Goldie laughed. I can't read the script. I've got cataracts now. The room burst into laughter. But amid the laughter, Kurt never let go of her hand. That small gesture, simple and silent, was more beautiful than any wedding ever could be. After the ceremony, backstage, when a reporter asked how she felt, Goldie said quietly, I don't need anyone to call me a wife. I just need to know that every morning when I open my eyes, he's still there. The line spread across social media. Within hours, shared millions of times a late but profoundly honest love confession. A week later, in an exclusive interview with the Los Angeles Times, Goldie said something that left readers speechless. Love doesn't die from betrayal. It dies from fear. A delicate but cutting truth revealing what she had hidden for 40 years. She hadn't avoided marriage for freedom, but because she was afraid of losing love once more. In their quiet Palm Desert home, someone found an old handwritten letter tucked inside a drawer, the ink smudged with tears. It read, If I marry you, I'll lose myself for the third time, even if that person is you. The letter was dated 1990, the year she planned the wedding, and canceled it. When asked about it, Kurt simply smiled. I never wanted to marry her. I just wanted to love her. A brief reply, yet it silenced the world. Because perhaps love has never been spoken so simply, or so truthfully. In her final journal entry, Goldie wrote, I was never afraid of marriage. I was afraid of waking up one morning and not finding him beside me. I call that fear love. Now Goldie and Kurt live quietly in Palm Desert, where wind and sand move through cactus-lined paths and sunsets paint the sky purple. They no longer appear in public, only walk hand in hand through the evenings. When asked if she regretted not marrying, after 40 years, Goldie smiled. We never had a wedding, but maybe, for 40 years, we've already been married, just with no one there to witness it. And when the final light fades, the story of Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell closes with one haunting question. Was marriage ever truly the proof of love, or just the name we give to the fear of losing it? 40 years together, no vows, No rings, no altar, yet Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell have held hands through every rise and fall of time. No witnesses at the altar, but millions have watched a nameless marriage built on kindness, understanding, and trust. Perhaps in a world where it's easy to bind people with paper, but hard to keep them with love. Their story is proof that staying, not swearing, is the truest vow of all. And that story, whether beautiful or bittersweet, leaves us wondering, is marriage truly the proof of love, or just humanity's way of finding comfort in the fear of losing it? What about you? Do you believe more in a grand wedding or in a love that endures without promises? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell's story moving, don't forget to like, share the video to spread the emotion, and subscribe to Ngui Noi Ting for more untold stories behind Hollywood's brightest lights. Because every famous name hides a shadowed corner, and together we'll uncover it right here.